こんにちは、あつです。この前ですね、スタンフォード大学博士課程在籍の言語学を専門とされているサマー先生にゲストとして来ていただいて、リスニングの効果的な学習法、これについていろいろと意見を共有していただきました。で、今回はその会話の中で出てきたもう一つの面白いポイント、聞き流しは意味があるか、これについてですね、ちょっと動画を作成しました。で、聞き流し実際どうでしょう。皆さんも何か作業をしている時にとりあえず聞き流していればちょっとは英語力上がるんじゃないかなとかいろいろと疑問に思っていることあると思うんですけれども、今回それに関してちょっとサマー先生とですね面白い議論をさせていただきましたので、そちらの様子を見ていただければと思います。で、今回も、ですね、前回同様英語で基本的には、やり取りをさせていただいているので、この英会話のスクリプトですね、こちらは公式 LINE からダウンロードできるようになっています。で、キーワードは今回は聞き流しと入れていただければ、こちらスクリプトダウンロードできるようになっていますので、リスニングの学習等にもですね、役立てていただければと思います。そしてさらに、今回はこのスクリプトの最後にですね、限定公開の動画のリンクも入れています。で、未公開の動画で、この動画の中ではですね、音痴の人っていうのは発音向上に苦労するのかと、ね、音痴と発音向上関係があるのかっていうところについてちょっと話した、内容がありますので、そちらもチェックしたいって方はですね、ぜひダウンロードして視聴してみてください。それではサマー先生との動画をお楽しみください。どうぞ。
Immersion has been like really popular these days. Everybody talks about immersion these days. So I think there is so much confusion as to like whether they should just immerse themselves in the environment where English is spoken and no Japanese at all, or should they learn English using Japanese at the same time? So you are talking from the position that people should study English
via Japanese.
I
with regards to Japanese, the vast majority of Japanese learners, I think that that's the best move. But it depends on your personality. If you are a confident person who does not hesitate to speak, and you don't, you can just jump out there and speak in English without being traumatized. This is the key. Then sure, go ahead and study abroad with absolutely no background knowledge. Maybe you'll do good, but do well. But I mean, yeah, most people, Japanese people, are quite hesitant culturally. They think about things carefully, before saying things. Culturally, you have to do that to survive in Japan.
Yeah.
So you've been trained to do that your entire life, to be careful, basically.
Yeah.
And then suddenly tell somebody, there's all these YouTubers that say, Eigo no, you just have to do it, you just have to speak. And I'm like, you can't just tell somebody, just go speak. It's not that easy. There's so many psychological blocks that people, that Japanese people have naturally just from being Japanese. It's not that easy to just go out there and speak. So you don't have to pressure yourself and stress yourself out. When you get comfortable enough first. Don't spend forever, being like, I'm not ready yet. That's not good either. But, get comfortable to some degree where you feel like, okay, I can now go.
Gradient, right? Yeah.
It depends. And it depends on the person. Again, it's always going to depend on the person. But
some people are outgoing, some people are pretty introverted.
Yeah, exactly. But, culturally, Japanese culture has these, things which I think are very positive in many ways. I'm not at all saying that these are bad things.
So as a way to tackle the confidence issue, you suggest people use Japanese content to learn English first, and then gradually they can get into the phase where they immerse themselves in the English.
Exactly. That's exactly what I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we talked about
Sorry, we jumped around. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. So we recognize. So first of all, we have to recognize the difference between Japanese and English, and gradually we have to get into the phase where, you only listen to English because you've got enough confidence. Is that right? Is that how?
I don't think that's the next step. But probably the first step, it would be to develop an awareness of the differences between the languages.
It's going to be a combination of the two, basically, be in the first phase.
What's the other? Sorry, one more time.
Oh, so recognizing the difference,
And then
and also
listening.
building confidence at the
Right.
same time.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Right.
yes,
Combined together being the first stage.
Yeah, right. I mean, confidence. Sorry, this confidence is. We were talking about immersion, and immersion is
Yeah.
more about speaking. So that's a little bit of a different, subject from listening. But obviously, it's good to develop your confidence early on because
Sure.
it takes time. So yes, yeah, you should be doing that. But with regards to listening, I don't think you necessarily have to be super confident. You could, because I mean, potentially you could be living in Japan and just
Right.
be like, I want to be able to hear and understand English TV sitcoms, right? That could be your goal.
Right.
Maybe your goal is not to go out and speak with expats or whatever.
Okay, so that discussion was more on the side of
That's
speaking.
on the side of speaking and immersion. But yeah, with regards to listening, not necessarily. If you want to speak, yeah, start early. But
Okay, and actually a lot of people say that, you've got to just get used to it. But I think the word or phrase getting used to it actually involves a lot of steps, right? There's a lot more complexity than
it's not
just listening. I think there has to be some process of identifying issues and analyzing them and trying to figure out what was wrong in my attitude towards listening and stuff like that. So if we were to break it down into components, like what the process
the
is,
practice stage, you mean? Again, this depends on the person.
Because you can't just keep listening and expecting yourself to be able to listen perfectly, right?
No,
you have to be practically using the knowledge that you've acquired.
Right. So you're referring to like 聞き流し kind of thing?
Some people might recommend that, as a next step.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It absolutely does not work. 聞き流し is
Does it help at all?
If you understand what's being said, if you know the words that are being said, then maybe you can there's linguistic research that says increase your input, so listen a lot. But you have to be listening to comprehensible input. It means input that you understand. If you can't understand it, it's like me saying to you, can you understand what I said? No. So it's even if you heard 50 times, you're not going to understand and be able to hear better because it doesn't make sense to you.
And do you have to be consciously paying attention to the
Yes, and that's the thing. So in order to understand it, you have to be consciously paying attention to it.
Right.
And then there are different levels of consciousness, right?
Yeah.
So you could just be listening and saying, okay, I understand the meaning. But then you could also be, if you turn on the sort of next step of consciousness, you could be analyzing the sounds. What's happening here? This is linking. Oh, that T has disappeared. That T has dropped or changed to a flap. That's the step that a lot of people don't do. And I thought, I thought it was like common sense to just analyze. I'm a linguist, so that I'm constantly analyzing language all the time. But people, you got to, they don't really do it. They'll kind of just listen, understand, and be content with that. But you need to go to the next step, which is you don't need to, but it's more beneficial for you if you go to the next step and they're like, what's happening here? And obviously you can't do that in the middle of a conversation with somebody, right? In the middle of the conversation, you're going to be you're going to be just trying to understand and get your point across, and that's fine. Don't practice listening in a real conversation. Practice listening for the sake of listening outside of those contexts, with your favorite drama, song, preferably something from a realistic conversation between two people. That's what I would recommend. But
even if the audio was understandable content, if you're not paying attention, it doesn't really work. 聞き流し doesn't really help you at all, even if...
No, it does, because you can develop a sort of feeling for English. For example, if you've heard...
With no attention being paid to it.
With no attention being paid, not really.
You're listening as white noise,
Oh, it's white noise. No, you have to at least understand be actively listening. But you don't have to be on the bunseki, the analytic level. You can just be listening actively, like you normally would when you're talking to somebody or watching something usually. But so, for example, if you do that a lot, a lot of people will develop a sort of feeling for English, what sounds right. Maybe they won't be able to explain why, they won't, if I ask you, what's happening in this sentence, they might not be able to break it down, but they'll develop a feeling for what sounds right. I just know this is right because because I've heard it, because I've heard it so many times, and your brain, doesn't memorize things, when you're not actively analyzing them, but it does recognize when patterns are something that it's heard a lot, right? So yeah, it's not like totally useless to just listen, 聞き流し is useless, yes, but like just listening without analyzing is not totally useless. I think you can gain a feeling like your English can,
right. But the effectiveness of it depends on like how much attention is being paid to it, basically.
Obviously, the more effort you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it, like anything in life. Yeah.